Have you ever felt that your whole life was quietly leading you to something you couldn't fully explain? Not just a vague feeling that change is coming, but a deep, unshakable knowing in your chest that everything you went through had a purpose. A feeling so strong that you suddenly realize nothing was random. Every delay, every loss, every struggle was carefully aligned to bring you to this exact moment. If you feel that way, it's because something important is unfolding now. This is not imagination or coincidence. You have reached the end of a long and difficult cycle, and what comes next is unlike anything you have experienced before. In the next phase, something will shift in a way that changes how you see yourself forever. You are standing at a turning point where endurance becomes recognition, and survival becomes strength made visible. Blend. This moment is special because it marks completion. It is the closing of a chapter that demanded more from you than you ever thought you could give. You were tested in ways that felt unfair, exhausting, and deeply personal. Many times, it felt like you were walking alone, unseen, unsupported, and misunderstood, yet you kept going. You did not quit when quitting would have been understandable. You did not become cruel when bitterness would have been easy. You carried pain quietly and continued to move forward, even when your heart was heavy. That kind of strength does not go unnoticed. What you endured was not meant to break you. It was meant to shape you into someone unshakable. Blonde. There is a difference between growth that happens in silence and growth that is finally acknowledged. For a long time, your progress happened behind closed doors. No applause, no validation. Just you choosing to do the right thing again and again, even when no one was watching. This moment represents recognition, not from people, but from something higher. It is like the difference between passing a test privately and standing publicly with proof that you succeeded. You were being observed, not judged, but witnessed. Every time you chose integrity over revenge, patience over reaction, and dignity over desperation, it counted. Nothing was wasted. Blamed. What makes this time different is that the silence ends. The lessons are complete. The endurance phase is over. There comes a point when growth no longer needs to be hidden, and strength no longer needs to be tested. That point is now. Everything you thought was ignored was actually recorded. Every tear mattered. Every time you asked why and heard no answer, it wasn't because you were forgotten. It was because the answer was being prepared. And when it arrives, it does not whisper. It arrives with clarity, certainty, and inner confirmation that you are no longer the same person who started this journey. Blend. Think back to a moment very recently when something hit you harder than expected. Something that could have shattered your spirit if you had let it. It may have been a betrayal, a loss, a deep disappointment, or a moment where you felt exposed and hurt at your core. That moment was designed to test the final layer of you. Not your strength when things are going well, but your character when everything feels like it's falling apart. Most people react by collapsing, blaming, lashing out, or numbing themselves. But you didn't. You stayed composed. You didn't chase explanations or beg for understanding. You closed the door quietly and kept moving forward. That response mattered more than you know. True growth is measured in moments like that. Not when life is easy, but when it is unbearable. Not when you are praised, but when you are alone with your pain. Anyone can appear strong when conditions are favorable. Few remain grounded when their heart is breaking. That is why this moment marks completion. You proved something that cannot be taught or faked. You showed resilience without needing recognition. And now, recognition comes naturally, without effort, without force. What changes next is internal first. A sense of certainty, a calm confidence, a knowing that you are no longer vulnerable in the same way. You didn't just survive. You became stronger than what tried to destroy you. This is why everything suddenly makes sense. The delays, the silence, the struggles that seemed unnecessary. They were shaping you for this exact shift. You are no longer preparing. You are arriving. And from here forward, nothing touches you the same way again. Plunge. Anyone can be gentle when life treats them gently. Anyone can stay calm when they are respected, supported, and understood. But holding your dignity when you are embarrassed, choosing responsibility when quitting would feel easier, and keeping your values when revenge would seem justified, shows something far deeper. That kind of response cannot be rehearsed or performed. It reveals that your growth is no longer something you try to be. It has become who you are. Without realizing it, about 5 days ago, you were placed in a final test. There were no instructions, no warnings, no signs telling you what was happening. Yet the way you responded showed that your strength is real. That moment marked the difference between repeating the same cycle and stepping forward into completion. You proved that your character no longer collapses under pressure, and that is what determines who is ready to move forward and who still needs more time to grow. Planned. After that decision you made, something shifted quietly behind the scenes. While you were simply continuing your life, unseen support began clearing the way ahead of you. Barriers that no longer belonged in your path started dissolving. Problems that once felt heavy began to lose their grip on your thoughts. Certain people who drained your energy slowly faded out without confrontation or effort. Worries that once filled your nights with restlessness softened, and clarity replaced confusion. This was not luck, and it was not coincidence. It was preparation. When a person reaches a point where they no longer react from pain, outside interference is removed, so the next phase can unfold cleanly. You were being prepared for something that requires a lighter heart and a clearer mind. Stemdia. When you reach this stage, help arrives differently. It does not force outcomes or take away your choices, but it removes distractions, false paths, and unnecessary burdens. Situations that could have trapped you suddenly closed. Temptations that once felt convincing lost their appeal, where panic once lived. All of this happened so naturally that you may not have noticed it at first. But looking back, you can see the shift. The noise faded, the pressure eased, space opened. This clearing was necessary, because what comes next cannot land in chaos. You cannot step into a new phase while still carrying old weight. At the same time, something deeper was happening. This was not about judging whether you were worthy or checking if you deserved anything. That stage had already passed. What was happening now was preparation for delivery. When someone proves that their values hold steady even in pain, trust is established. Once trust exists, there is no need for more testing. What was once delayed for your own protection can finally arrive without harming you. Some things, if given too early, would overwhelm you or distort your path. Now, you are ready to receive without losing yourself. There is a reason this moment carries such intensity. Long before this life began, before your name, your body, or your circumstances existed, there was intention behind your journey. Your soul was not unaware of what it would face. It was shown two possibilities. One was an easier path, calmer and more predictable, with fewer losses and less pain. A life that would be safe, ordinary, and emotionally manageable, but limited in growth. The other path was far more demanding. It included deep loneliness, painful endings, betrayal, and moments that would test your faith in yourself and others. but it also carried the potential for profound transformation and quiet influence that could touch many lives. You chose the difficult path. That choice was not made lightly. You were shown the nights you would cry without answers. You were shown the people who would walk away. You were shown how lost and small you would sometimes feel. And still, you chose growth over comfort. You chose evolution over ease. What you forgot when you entered this life was how close the odds were. There was always a real chance that the weight would become too much, that you would harden your heart, numb your feelings, or abandon your deeper self just to survive. Many do. But you didn't. You kept going through every dark stretch. You endured moments that felt endless. You stayed open when closing off would have felt safer. You protected your kindness even when the world gave you reasons not to. Clem, by reaching this point without losing your core, you completed what you came here to do. That completion carries a quiet but powerful recognition. It is the kind that comes when someone finishes something most never attempt, let alone complete. It is the recognition of resilience, not perfection, of courage, not comfort, of perseverance earned the hard way. This is why the moment ahead matters. It is not sudden. It is deserved. It is the natural result of everything you endured and every choice you made when no one was watching. Blent. What you feel now is not random. It is the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. You are not becoming someone new. You are finally stepping into who you were always meant to be. There is a special kind of pride that comes when a creator sees their creation reach its full potential. It is not loud most of the time. It is quiet, patient, and observant. But on rare occasions, that pride becomes so strong it can no longer stay contained. That is when it expresses itself in a powerful way. Moments like this do not happen often. They are reserved for turning points of deep meaning when something truly difficult has been completed. Crossing this threshold is one of those moments. It marks the completion of something that once seemed impossible. The recognition of that completion carries a force that can be felt deeply, not as noise, but as a sudden inner shift that changes how everything feels and fits together, blended. When that recognition happens, it does not disappear into nothingness. It carries influence. Just as human emotions can change the body instantly, higher recognition carries an effect that spreads outward. It leaves an imprint. That imprint subtly reshapes how you experience life. From that point forward, things begin to line up in ways that feel almost effortless. Connections happen at the right time. Doors open without struggle. Situations that once felt blocked begin to move. This is not magic or fantasy. It is a shift in alignment. When inner resistance dissolves, the outer world responds differently. This change begins immediately and shows itself in practical ways. One of the first things you may notice is mental clarity. Thoughts that once felt tangled start to organize themselves. Decisions become simpler. You stop second-guessing every step because a sense of direction forms naturally inside you. At the same time, worries that have followed you for a long time, especially around stability or resources, begin to loosen. You may receive a conversation, idea, or opportunity that shows you a clear way forward. It may not solve everything instantly, but it removes the feeling of being stuck. Lange. You may also notice contact from someone you have not spoken to in a while. The message may seem casual, but it carries meaning beyond the surface. It opens a new path or reconnects something that will matter later. Your sleep may change as well. Instead of restless nights, you may experience a clear, vivid dream that feels more like guidance than imagination. When you wake up, the message will stay with you, and perhaps most noticeably, your body will respond. A heaviness you have carried in your chest or shoulders will ease. Your breathing will feel deeper. Your body will feel lighter, as if a long-held burden has finally been set down. These shifts happen when someone reaches this stage fully prepared. But there is something unique about your journey. When your path was examined closely, one pattern stood out. Each time you faced pain, your first response was not to ask why it happened, but to search for meaning. Even in moments of deep hurt, some part of you wanted to understand rather than escape. That is a rare quality. It shows a willingness to grow through experience rather than be defeated by it. People with that kind of inner structure are trusted with greater responsibility, not because they are perfect, but because they are resilient. Because of this, what unfolds next is not only for you. Your presence itself begins to have an effect on others. Without trying to help, teach, or fix anyone, people around you will start to feel calmer when you are near. Conversations that seem ordinary will leave others feeling lighter. Some will walk away from an interaction with you feeling renewed without knowing why. You will not be doing anything differently on the surface. The change happens quietly through the way you carry yourself and the steadiness you now hold. Each time this happens, it creates momentum. When hope is restored in someone else, strength grows in you as well. It becomes a cycle that moves upward, where clarity leads to influence, and influence deepens purpose. This is not about being above others. It is about being stable enough to support light without losing yourself. There was a moment recently, while you were asleep, when your journey was reviewed carefully. Every choice where you responded with patience instead of anger. Every time you chose forgiveness instead of holding on to resentment. Every moment where hope remained even when discouragement made sense. Your emotional steadiness during chaos stood out. Endurance through stress was noted. But what mattered most were the moments when you were completely alone and spoke honestly, without filters or rehearsed words. Those conversations were not polished or perfect. They were raw, emotional, and real. Sometimes they came with frustration, sometimes with tears, sometimes with demands for answers. But they were genuine, and that honesty matters. True belief is not proven by perfect words. It is shown through authenticity. Speaking openly, even in anger or confusion, shows trust that someone is listening. That kind of honesty creates connection. Because of this, a decision was made that changes what comes next. In the coming phase, there will be a moment when presence becomes undeniable. Not dramatic or overwhelming, but deeply personal. It may happen during a quiet activity or an ordinary moment, but when it does, everything will feel still. You will know, without explanation, that you are supported, seen, and carried by something greater than effort alone. And from that moment forward, nothing feels quite the same again. There will be a moment when you feel a presence so steady, so loving, and so undeniable that every doubt you ever carried disappears at once. You won't hear words with your ears, but you will understand clearly. You will know that you were never alone. Every tear you cried, every night you felt abandoned, every moment you believed you were holding yourself together by sheer will. Something greater was quietly supporting everything so it would not fall apart. When that realization settles in, you will cry, not from pain, but from relief. Relief that finally answers the question you were too tired to ask anymore. You were never forgotten. You were never left behind. There is also something very specific waiting for you as you step into this next phase. It is not random or generic. It was shaped by your personal journey. Over the past months, you gave something up that mattered deeply to you. Not because it was easy, but because keeping it would have meant betraying your values. It may have been a relationship you cared about, but knew was unhealthy. It may have been an opportunity that looked promising, but conflicted with who you are. It may have been a dream you had to release because the timing or cost was wrong. That sacrifice was seen, and what is coming is not just a replacement, but an expansion. What you receive will not resemble what you lost, because what you lost was never meant to stay. It was prep. What arrives next will make you realize that letting go was necessary, so your hands would be free to receive something far better, planned. When this understanding lands, the relief will be overwhelming. You may even find yourself grateful for the moments that once hurt the most, not because they were pleasant, but because they led you here. You will finally see that it was not punishment. It was shaping. But there is something important to know about what happens immediately after this shift. In the short time that follows, there may be a quiet pause. On the outside, it may feel like nothing is happening. On the inside, everything is rearranging. This is a natural part of the process. Old patterns are being released to make space for what is new. During this time, emotions may rise unexpectedly. You might feel tired, sensitive, or unsettled without a clear reason. This does not mean you are moving backward. It means the final layers of the old self are being cleared. After this brief period passes, the change becomes undeniable. You will wake up feeling different in a way that is difficult to explain, but impossible to ignore. Your thoughts will be clearer. Your energy will feel renewed. There will be a calm inside you that does not depend on circumstances. Decisions will feel easier. Your intuition will feel stronger, as if you suddenly trust yourself again. This is not a temporary high. It becomes your new normal. A steadier, more grounded way of moving through life. Land. This moment matters not only because of what it does for you, but because of when it happens. Your journey. You chose to complete it now, at a moment when the world itself is at a turning point. Humanity is standing between fear and growth, between repeating old patterns and choosing something better. For that shift to happen, people need living proof that transformation is real. They need examples of those who went through darkness and emerged stronger without losing their humanity. You are one of those examples. Your growth is not just personal. It contributes to something larger. Then, as more people reach this stage, the collective atmosphere begins to change. Hope gains strength. Fear loses its grip. One person's clarity influences another's courage. This is how real change spreads, quietly, steadily, through presence rather than force. You are not stepping into a role of superiority. You are stepping into alignment. By simply being who you have become, you remind others of what is possible. Planger. Now you understand why this moment feels so important. It is not about a date on a calendar. It is about completion, readiness, and purpose aligning at the same time. In this phase, you receive clarity. You receive confirmation. You receive a gift shaped by your integrity. And you become a steady source of reassurance for others, without effort or strain. Everything you endured finally reveals its meaning. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a new way of walking it. And when you look back, you will see that every painful moment was part of the process that shaped you into someone capable of carrying light without being consumed by it.